Alright, today on Footballers, I'm going to be taking you through the best player from every single country in Europe. We have over 50 countries to go through, so strap in, it's going to be a bit of a long video. By the way, we're counting countries that play in UEFA for this, so some countries that are geographically in Asia, like Kazakhstan, are included because they play in UEFA competitions. And also some countries that don't have a national team, like Monaco, aren't included. Also, in terms of the best player, I'm going on current form, not of all time. So let's waste no time, let's start with Albania. For Albania, I have City, who is Atalanta's center back. He's been a huge part of them on their rise. He's doing great this season, and I think he is definitely Albania's best player. For Andorra, we have Iker Alvarez, who's a backup goalkeeper for Villarreal. For Armenia, who else but Inter Milan's Henrik Mkhitaryan. For Austria, now many of you may be thinking David Alaba, but I've actually got Konrad Laimer, Bayern's right back. He's been really good this season. For Azerbaijan, now we're going to run into a few countries in this video that I know nothing about. Azerbaijan is kind of one of them. I don't know anything about Azerbaijani football. The only thing I really know is the team Karabakh that often competes in the Europa League or the UEFA Conference League. I'd be lying if I told you I really pay attention to them, but I went with the 20-year-old winger Nariman Akudzanda, who scored 9 goals in 35 games for them, and that's the best of any Azerbaijani player on that team. For Belarus, again, I don't know much about any Belarusian players, but I went with Ilya Shkudin, who has a decent scoring record in the Polish league. For Belgium, it's not really anyone else, but Real Madrid's goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois. For Bosnia, it was a toss-up between Dzeko and Demirovic for me, but I went with Demirovic because he has 13 goals in the Bundesliga, as opposed to Dzeko's 12 in the Turkish league. For Bulgaria, I went with Kirill Despodov, who has 8 goals and 12 assists at right wing for PAOK, who play in the Greek league. For Croatia, now this one's a bit up for debate, but I'd still take Luka Modric over someone like Gvardiol, or honestly Budimir, who's been great for Osasuna this season, but no, I think Luka Modric is still the best Croatian. I also want to clarify that this isn't specifically about their national team performances. That does weigh a little bit into it, but I'm mostly taking into account their club performances. Someone who's bad for the national team but great for their club, I'm not going to hold that against them. For Cyprus, I went with Grigoris Kastanos, who has lots of caps for the national team and 23 appearances in central midfield for Hellas Verona in the Serie A this season. For Czechia, it had to be no one else but Patrick Schick, who has 17 goals in the Bundesliga this season for Leverkusen. For Denmark, it's definitely Rasmus Højlund for his brilliant performances at Manchester United. No, for me this one was between Anderson at Fulham or Hjulmand at Sporting. I'm just going to go with Morten Hjulmand here because he's been a huge part of Sporting's recent success and he's linked to some of the best clubs in the world. Now we have England. On paper, this one seems like it should be tough because you have stars like Bellingham and Saka, but I really think it's no contest and it's just Harry Kane. He's incredible. For Estonia, it has to be the highly rated young Arsenal goalkeeper Karl Hein. For the Faroe Islands, I would be lying to you if I said I knew anything about Faroese football, but I'm going to go with Clement Olsen because he's currently the top scorer in the Faroe Islands Premier League, and he's the joint top scorer in the national team's history. For Finland, it has to be Leverkusen's goalie Lukas Radetsky, and it's not even close. France, you could argue Dembele is on slightly better form than Mbappe right now, but I'm still going to take Mbappe as the best French player. For Georgia, it's a slight toss-up for me between Mamardashvili and Kvaratskhelia, but I'll take the PSG winger. For Germany, this one was pretty tricky between me. I thought about Kimmich, I thought about Rudiger, I thought about Musiala, but I'm going to take Leverkusen's Florian Wirtz. For Gibraltar, again, I'm not too familiar about footballers from Gibraltar, but I went for TJ DeBar, who's the striker for the best club in Gibraltar, Lincoln Red Imps, and he actually recently played in League One for the Wycombe Wanderers. In Greece, I want to pick their wonder kid Kvaratskhelia, but I think their best player at the moment is Benfica striker Pavlidis. For Hungary, it's nobody else but Dominik Szoboszlai. For Iceland, I love Iceland. They're such an overperforming nation with a tiny population. There's actually a few decent players to choose from, but I've gone for the 21-year-old midfielder Haraldsson from Lille. For Ireland, I've gone for Brentford centre-back Nathan Collins. For Israel, I've gone with Oskar Gluck from Red Bull Salzburg. For Italy, I went with Nico Barella from Inter. Some might say Donnarumma, some might say Bastoni, but I think Barella is still the best Italian right now. For Kazakhstan, I went for Nurali Alip, who plays as a centre-back for Zenit. For Kosovo, it has to be Ramani, who's Napoli's centre-back. Now, Kosovo actually had a few decent options to choose from, like Zagrova at Lille and Muriqi at Mallorca, but I think Romania is definitely the pick of the bunch. For Latvia, I went with mcginn, who is Ferencváros's right back. If you don't know, they're pretty much the best team in Hungary. For Liechtenstein, I went for Marcel Buchel, who plays in the Serie C, but he did play in the Serie B last season. There's not many to pick from Liechtenstein, but that's the best I found. For Lithuania, I went for Gyokeres Gineitis, who is a solid rotation midfielder for Torino in the Serie A. For Luxembourg, I had to go for Leandro Barreiro Martins, who used to play for Mainz but right now plays for Benfica and is a really solid dynamic midfielder. For Malta, it's not even close, it's Teddy Tiuma, who plays for Stade de Reims in France. For Moldova, I went for Oleg Ryabchuk, who is the left back for Spartak Moscow. For Montenegro, it has to be Adem Marusic, who is Lazio's starting right back. For the Netherlands, although some other Dutch players are shining right now like Xavi Simons and Gianni Reinders, it has to be Virgil van Dijk. For North Macedonia, I went for Elmas for Torino. You may recognize the name because he's played for RB Leipzig and Napoli in the past. He's just joined Torino and has 4 goals in 7 games for them. For Northern Ireland, it has to be Liverpool's Connor Bradley. For Norway, they must be the worst team with the best players to choose from. Odegaard's great, but it has to be Erling Haaland. For Poland, you could maybe argue Szczesny, but I'd say Lewandowski is still Poland's best player. For Portugal, now a lot of you might not like this answer, but I'm not going with Ronaldo. I am going to say Bruno Fernandes. Look, I know Man United are absolutely terrible right now, but he's pretty much the one bright spark in that team. Although, to be fair, if you said Vitinha, I wouldn't be mad at that either. For Romania, I've gone for the blue-haired right back for Rayo Vallecano, Ratiu. For Russia, it has to be Monaco's Alexander Golovin. For San Marino, I went for Nicola Nani, who is a striker that plays in the Serie C for Torres. Yes, he only has 2 goals this season, but no offense, San Marino, there's not a lot to choose from you guys. I'm a huge fan of your national team, though, and I was cheering when you got your first competitive win a while back. For Scotland, this is a bit of a tricky one. I think you could argue fairly for Robertson, McTominay, and Ryan Christie this season, but I'm going to go for Aston Villa's captain, John McGinn. For Serbia, I know he's in Saudi Arabia, so he's a bit out of the public eye, but I'll still take Alexander Mitrovic over the likes of Vlahovic or Forrest Milenkovic. For Slovakia, it's close between him and Feyenoord's Hanto, but I've gone for Napoli's defensive midfielder, Lobotka. For Slovenia, I know that Sesko's been making headlines recently, but Atleti's goalkeeper Oblak is still by far their best player in my opinion. For Spain, I would say the Ballon d'Or winner Rodri, but he's been injured all season, so for me it's a toss-up between Barcelona youngsters Pedri and Yamal, but I'm just going to go with the midfield maestro Pedri. For Sweden, this was the hardest pick by far for me. 2 star strikers in Isak and Gyokeres. Both have been amazing this season. Now Gyokeres does have more goals, but he also plays in a worse league. For me though, it's his Champions League performances and his latest performances for Sweden that just put him a bit above Isak. For Switzerland, it has to be Inter's number 1 and Switzerland's number 1, Jan Sommer. And for Turkey, staying in Inter, who else would it be but Çalhanoğlu for Turkey's best player? For Ukraine, I've gone for Bournemouth centre-back Zabarny, who's looked amazing this season. And finally, for Wales, I have Nottingham Forest fullback Nico Williams. Well, that was a lot of players to get through. Let me know what you think if you're from any of these countries, and or if you think I should have picked any other players from any of these countries. Also, if you want to see this from other continents, please let me know. Also, if you'd like for me to make this a series and go all around the world, please let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to Footballers for more videos like this one.